Chief Dyke of Amuru was no ordinary man. He owned the biggest palm oil mill in the region. Everyone respected him, but deep down he wondered if his workers truly cared about people, or only about power and money. One hot morning he called his most trusted advisor, Nyameka. "I want to see their true hearts," the chief said. "Tomorrow I'll disguise myself as a poor traveler and work among them." Nyameka's eyes widened. "What if they don't recognize you, my chief?" "That's the point," Chief Dyke replied with a calm smile. "Let their actions speak. I must know who among them has a kind heart." That night the chief took off his fine clothes. He put on torn trousers, a dusty shirt, and covered his face in charcoal. He looked nothing like the rich man he was. Even his own children wouldn't have known it was him. Early the next morning he arrived at the palm oil mill. The workers were already busy, shouting and moving around. He limped through the gates carrying a small bag. Some stared. Others frowned. "Who let this beggar in?" one man barked. Another laughed. "He's probably looking for leftover palm kernels to eat." Chief Dyke kept quiet. He sat under a tree waiting. No one offered help. No one asked his name. Except one. A soft voice spoke behind him. "Are you hungry, sir?" she asked. Chief Dyke turned. A young woman with tired eyes and gentle hands stood there, holding a bowl of water and a piece of bread. He stared at her in silence. And in that moment, his test truly began. Her name was Adaeze, the lowest paid worker at the palm oil mill. She was always quiet, always working, and rarely noticed. She handed the bread and water to the disguised chief. "You can sit here. It's cooler under the tree," she said kindly. Chief Dyke, still in disguise, nodded slowly. "Thank you, my daughter. May the gods bless you." She smiled shyly and walked back to her task, washing large metal drums used to boil palm fruit. Her hands were cracked. Her feet were bare. Yet her heart was warm. Meanwhile, the other workers whispered and laughed. "Imagine feeding that dirty old man. She's foolish. Maybe he's mad." One man, Okoro, the mill supervisor, marched toward the tree. "Hey you! Get up. You don't belong here," he shouted at the disguised chief. The chief stood slowly, wincing as if in pain. "I only need a day's work. I can sweep or clean." Okoro scoffed. "You? Work here? With your ragged clothes? Get out before I call the guards." Chief Dyke looked at Adaeze. She said nothing, but her eyes filled with shame at her boss's cruelty. Then something surprising happened. "I'll share my task with him," she said. "He can help me scrub the drums." The crowd gasped. Okoro stared, angry and confused. "Are you crazy?" But Adaeze stood firm. "He's human. He deserves a chance." The chief followed her without a word. Inside his heart swelled. He had seen many workers, but never one like her. As they scrubbed together, the chief watched her closely. Not once did she complain. Not once did she treat him like dirt. And in that silence, a seed was planted. By midday the sun burned hot above the mill. Workers wiped sweat from their brows, and the smell of boiling palm fruit filled the air. Adaeze and the disguised chief kept scrubbing in silence. Every now and then she offered him water from her cup. She even shared her lunch, yam porridge wrapped in banana leaves. "You don't have much," the chief said softly. "But I have enough," she replied with a smile. Suddenly a loud shout broke through the mill. "Fire! Fire near the storage shed." Panic exploded. Workers dropped tools. Some ran. Others screamed. Chief Dyke turned to look and saw thick smoke rising. The shed stored bags of processed palm oil and old wooden tools. If the fire spread, it would ruin everything. Without thinking, Adaeze grabbed a bucket and ran toward the flames. Other workers stood back, unsure. "What is she doing?" someone asked. "She'll get burned." But Adaeze didn't stop. She threw water at the flames, coughing through the smoke. Two younger boys followed her lead. Minutes later the fire died down. The danger passed, but now the blame began. Okoro stormed out, pointing fingers. "Who left the torch near the shed?" No one answered. Then he pointed at the disguised chief. "It was the beggar. I saw him near there earlier." Adaeze stepped forward. "He was with me the whole time. He didn't go near the shed." Okoro narrowed his eyes. "Of course you'd defend him. You're soft." Adaeze stood tall. "I'm not soft. I'm just not cruel." The chief looked at her with quiet wonder. She risked her job, for him. The next morning Adaeze arrived early at the mill, earlier than most. She liked the quiet before the rush and the soft sounds of birds overhead. But as she approached the washing area, she saw Okoro waiting with his arms crossed. "You think you're better than everyone?" he barked. Adaeze kept her eyes down. No, sir. He stepped closer. You embarrassed me yesterday. Don't think I didn't notice. I only spoke the truth, she replied, her voice calm but firm. Okoro's face tightened. From now on you'll clean the latrine behind the shed. That's your new job. Adaeze's heart sank. The latrine was dirty, smelly, and far from shade. It was the worst duty in the mill. No one wanted it. But, why, sir? He smirked. If you like helping beggars you can scrub dung too. Unless you'd rather quit. Adaeze paused. She had no family in town. No other job. This was her only way to eat. So she nodded. I'll do it. From the shadows, the disguised chief watched everything. His fists clenched, but he said nothing. Later that day, he found her behind the shed, kneeling beside the latrine with a brush and soapy water. He knelt beside her again. You shouldn't be doing this, he said. I don't mind, she replied with a tired smile. Hard work is better than a bitter heart. Those words struck him deep. He saw something rare in her, a strength wrapped in gentleness. But the test wasn't over yet. That evening, Chief Dyke told Nyameka, tomorrow I'll push the line further. We need to see what's in her soul when the whole world turns against her. The next day came with dark clouds and heavy air. Everyone felt it. Adaeze worked quietly by the latrine, humming a soft tune. Her hands were sore, but her spirit stayed calm. Then Okoro struck again. He stood in the center of the mill, holding up a small purse of coins. Someone stole this from the office, he shouted. Gasps flew around. Whispers started. We don't steal, one man muttered. Then Okoro pointed directly at the disguised chief. I saw that beggar near the office yesterday. He's the thief. All eyes turned. The chief, still covered in rags, stepped forward slowly. I did no such thing. Okoro turned to Adaeze. And you, your new friend stole from us. Are you still going to protect him? Adaeze's eyes flicked from Okoro to the chief. Her hands shook. Okoro walked up to her. Say it now. Say he's a thief. Or you're finished here. The mill grew quiet. Adaeze breathed deeply and raised her voice. I don't believe he did it. Okoro's face turned red. You think I'm lying? I didn't say that, Adaeze said carefully. I'm saying I've watched that man. He's poor, yes, but not a thief. The workers murmured. Some looked unsure. Chief Dyke stared at her, eyes wide. Even with pressure, shame, and the threat of losing her job, Adaeze still stood for truth. Okoro snapped his fingers. You're suspended for 3 days. Leave now. Adaeze gathered her things in silence. But just before she left, she looked back at the chief. Don't stop being kind, she whispered. Even if it costs you. Chief Dyke swallowed hard. This girl was more royal than some kings. Adaeze walked home slowly, her shoes soaked from the afternoon rain. The path to her house was muddy and lined with overgrown grass. She lived at the edge of the village in a tiny mud house with a broken roof and one window. The rain had leaked through again. Water dripped steadily onto her sleeping mat. She dropped her bag inside. There was no money for repairs. No family to call. Her mother had died years ago, and her younger brother had left for the city, never to return. Still, Adaeze knelt to mop up the floor with an old cloth. As she worked, something outside caught her eye. A small folded note lay near the doorstep, weighed down by a stone. Curious, she picked it up and read. You are not forgotten. Kind hearts are always seen, eventually. No name. No signature. Her heart raced. Who had written it? How did they know where she lived? She stepped outside and looked around, but the path was empty. Just the sound of crickets and distant thunder. Inside, she lit a candle and placed the note near her mat. It gave her comfort. Across the village, Chief Dyke removed his disguise. In his private chambers, he stared out the window with deep thought. She stood firm again, he told Nyameka. Even when it meant sleeping under a leaking roof. Nyameka smiled. Shall we end the test now, my chief? But the chief shook his head. Not yet. I must see one more thing, what she does when no one is watching and the reward is hidden. 2 days passed. Adaeze spent them repairing her roof with old palm fronds and patching her clothes with scrap cloth. She had little, but she never complained. On the 3rd day, her suspension ended. She returned to the mill with her head held high. Okoro saw her and smirked. Back already? Let's see how long you last. Adaeze walked past him quietly. She returned to her old post, scrubbing the oil drums. The others avoided her now. They whispered behind her back. But she stayed focused. That afternoon, while sweeping near the storage shed, her broom hit something hard. She bent down and saw a small, round tin buried under the dirt. It was old, rusted, but when she opened it, her eyes widened. Inside were gold bracelets. Real ones. Heavy. Shining even through the dust. She gasped. Her heart pounded. No one was around. She looked left, then right. Just her and the treasure. For a moment, her fingers trembled. What if she kept it? She could fix her house. Well, leave the mill. But then she took a deep breath. She closed the tin and held it tight. An hour later, she walked to the manager's office and placed it gently on the desk. I found this near the shed, she told Okoro. It looks valuable. He stared at her like she was mad. You brought this back? It's not mine, she said simply. He shook his head in disbelief. You really are a strange girl. But from the shadows near the door, Chief Dyke in disguise once again watched and smiled. She had passed the final test. That evening, heavy clouds rolled in. Rain poured over Amuru village like a broken pot. Thunder cracked across the sky. Adaeze sat inside her small house, watching water drip through the patched roof. Her stomach rumbled, but she had saved the last handful of Gary for the next morning. Just then, a knock echoed at her door. She froze. No one ever visited her. Who could it be in this storm? She opened the door and found the disguised chief standing there, shivering, soaked to the bone. Please, he said, coughing lightly, may I shelter here for the night? Without hesitation, Adaeze stepped aside. Come in. She gave him her only dry wrapper to warm up and poured him warm water. I have no food to offer, she said softly, but you are welcome to rest here. The chief looked around. The house was no bigger than a storage room. The floor was cold. The mat was thin. Yet there was peace inside. He sat beside the candle and watched her carefully. You gave back gold today, he whispered. And now you share a roof with a stranger. She smiled. We lose nothing by being kind. Even if people laugh at us. Chief Dyke didn't respond. He simply nodded and closed his eyes. Adaeze watched him and wondered, who is this man really? Why does he keep appearing in my life? Outside the rain poured. Inside, something quiet and powerful was growing. Not in words, but in the heart. The sun rose gently after the storm. Birds chirped again and fresh dew covered the leaves. Adaeze woke early and found her guest gone. No note. No sound. Just the empty spot where he had rested. She felt a strange sadness, like something important had ended. At the palm oil mill, workers were already gathered, whispering in groups. Something unusual was happening. A loud bell rang 3 times. Then came the voice of Nyameka, the chief's advisor. All workers gather in front of the mill. Chief Dyke has returned and has something to say. Gasps followed. The chief? He hasn't been here in weeks. I heard he traveled to the city. Adaeze stood quietly among them. Moments later, Chief Dyke stepped forward. But this time, he wore his royal wrapper, coral beads and golden staff. His face was clean, glowing with power and peace. The crowd bowed in respect. But Adaeze's eyes widened in shock. She knew that face. It was him. The beggar. The stranger. The one who sat under the tree. The one who slept in her tiny home. Chief Dyke raised a hand. My people, for weeks I walked among you dressed as nothing. I wanted to see who you truly are when no one is watching. Murmurs grew louder. He paused, then turned to the crowd. Only one among you treated me like a human being. Now all eyes turned to Adaeze. Her heart thudded. Chief Dyke smiled gently. Step forward, my daughter. She did, slowly, her legs shaking. He raised his staff and said, This girl, this humble worker, has the heart of a queen. The crowd was silent. Chief Dyke turned to Adaeze and placed a hand on her shoulder. You gave me water when I was thirsty. You shared your food, your time, and even your shelter. Not because you had much, but because your heart is full. Tears welled up in Adaeze's eyes. She shook her head, overwhelmed. I didn't know, my chief. I didn't do it for any reward. That's exactly why you deserve one, the chief said, his voice strong. He raised his staff high. I, Chief Dyke of Amuru, hereby declare Adaeze the new head supervisor of the palm oil mill. All reports and decisions will pass through her. Anyone who mistreats her, answers to me. Gasps echoed. Okoro's mouth dropped open. What? She's just a... The chief turned sharply. She is more than most. While others chased favor, she chose kindness. The workers clapped slowly. Some nodded in agreement. Others lowered their heads in shame. But Adaeze's hands trembled. I'm not worthy, she whispered. Chief Dyke smiled. You are. Because you never asked to be. Then he pulled out a folded paper. And this, he added, is the deed to a two-room house near the market square. It's yours now. A safe roof. A warm bed. The crowd roared. Adaeze fell to her knees, tears falling freely now. Thank you, my chief. Thank you. Chief Dyke lifted her gently. You reminded me what leadership truly means, he said. In that moment, under the morning sun, the girl with nothing became someone everyone would remember. Not everyone clapped that day. In the crowd, Okoro clenched his fists, his face dark with anger. How could that girl, poor, quiet Adaeze, take the position he once ruled? He stormed away from the mill without a word. That night he sat in his room boiling with rage. His pride had been bruised. His authority taken. And worst of all, by someone he once mocked. She made me look weak, he muttered. In front of everyone. Then an idea formed in his mind. If I can't rise again, he said through gritted teeth, then I'll make sure she falls. The next morning Adaeze arrived early. Her clothes were simple but her posture had changed. She moved with quiet confidence, greeting workers by name, asking how they felt, and smiling even when they stared in disbelief. Some workers warmed to her. Others avoided her. But Okoro watched from a distance, his eyes filled with bitter thoughts. Later that afternoon, Adaeze walked into the storage room to check inventory. Behind her, Okoro slipped inside and knocked over a crate of dried palm kernels. The noise startled her. What was that? She asked. Okoro appeared, holding a broken padlock. Someone tried to break into the oil storage, he said. She frowned. That's serious. We need to report it. Okoro smiled too quickly. Yes, we must catch the thief. But be careful. Someone may try to frame you now that you're the boss. Adaeze looked at him, puzzled. Why did that sound more like a warning than advice? The following day, Adaeze began reviewing the old financial records. Part of her new role involved checking past expenses and ensuring the mill's profits were used wisely. She sat alone in the small office beside the main hall, flipping through dusty ledgers. Most pages were fine, until she turned to one that made her stop cold. A page near the back showed missing oil quantities and fake purchase lists. The signature below looked like hers. But Adaeze had never seen this page before. She stood up, heart racing. Was someone trying to frame her? Just then Okoro entered. You look troubled, he said, pretending to be helpful. Adaeze held up the ledger. This is fake. Someone forged my name. Okoro leaned in. That's serious, Adaeze? If the chief sees that, he may think you've been stealing since you took over. She stared at him. Are you accusing me too? She asked softly. He raised his hands. I'm only saying, this could ruin you. Adaeze closed the ledger slowly. I'll take this to the chief myself, she said. Okoro's smile faded. That's dangerous. Maybe, you should let it go. She met his eyes. No. The truth doesn't hide in fear. Okoro left, but not before whispering, Be careful, Adaeze. You're not as safe as you think. Later that evening she wrapped the ledger in cloth and tucked it under her arm. As she walked toward the palace, the wind howled louder than usual. Her heart pounded, not from fear but from the strength it took to face what was coming. Adaeze left the mill just as the sun dipped below the trees. The village path to the palace was quiet, lined with tall bushes and narrow bends. She held the wrapped ledger tightly against her chest. Every sound made her turn, rustling leaves, snapping twigs, distant voices. Halfway there, a figure stepped out from the shadows. It was Okoro. She froze. You're walking alone with something dangerous, he said, smiling without warmth. I'm going to see the chief, Adaeze replied calmly. You don't understand, he said, stepping closer. This mill belongs to men like me. You were a servant, a toilet cleaner. And now you think you're a queen? Adaeze didn't flinch. Kindness made me rise, not pride. He moved to block her path. Give me the ledger. No. He reached forward. Before his hand could touch her, a firm voice called out from behind. Don't take another step. Okoro turned. There stood Chief Dyke, surrounded by 2 palace guards, arms folded, eyes hard. I thought I'd find the snake near the road, the chief said. Adaeze's mouth fell open. You were watching? I was listening too, the chief replied. Your courage speaks louder than gold. The guard seized Okoro. He struggled, but it was useless. Let him be judged by the village council, Chief Dyke said. Then he turned to Adaeze and smiled. You've done well again. She bowed her head, relief washing over her. But the chief wasn't finished. Tomorrow I will show all of Amuru what true leadership looks like. The next morning, a large gong sounded through Amuru village. People peeked out of their windows. Children stopped playing. The call was clear. All workers, all elders, all villagers, come to the village square. Chief Dyke has a message. By mid-morning the square was packed. Drums played softly as guards lined the corners. Adaeze stood beside Nyameka, her hands folded tightly. Her heart beat fast. She wasn't used to standing in front of crowds, especially not as someone important. Then Chief Dyke appeared, dressed in white with red beads, his staff gleaming in the sun. He raised his hand. Silence fell. I went among you as a beggar, a nobody. Many turned their backs. One did not. He gestured to Adaeze. She offered me bread when she had none to spare. She shared her only mat with me during a storm. She protected the truth even when it cost her. The crowd murmured. Some nodded in shame. Others stared with awe. The chief continued, and even when threatened, she did not return hate with hate. That, my people, is the strength we need. He turned to Adaeze. Today I make it official. You are not only the supervisor of the mill. You are now the head steward of the Royal Palm Holdings. You will oversee all 3 mills under my name. Gasps spread across the crowd. Chief Dyke leaned in. You will lead with compassion, just as you served with heart. Adaeze's eyes filled with tears. She bowed deeply. I accept, my chief. Not with pride, but with purpose. The crowd erupted in claps and cheers. But deep inside she wondered. With her new role as head steward of Royal Palm Holdings, Adaeze was given a new uniform, an office near the palace and a small staff. The village children began to greet her with smiles and greetings of Madame Adaeze. But not everyone was smiling behind closed doors. In small corners of the market, whispers began. She's just lucky. She must have charmed the chief somehow. I heard she planted that gold tin herself. Even some workers at the mills grew cold. They followed her orders but not with respect. Their eyes no longer held doubt, but envy. Adaeze felt it. Every yes ma came with a fake smile. Every suggestion she made was met with silence first. She sat at her desk one afternoon staring out the window. Her fingers touched the beaded necklace Chief Dyke had given her, a symbol of leadership. She wondered, why is kindness so hard for others to understand? Nyameka entered quietly. You've done nothing wrong, he said. She looked at him. Then why do they hate me? They don't hate you. They hate what you remind them of, what they refuse to be. Adaeze nodded slowly. I won't stop, she said. Good, Nyameka replied. Because you're about to be tested again. One of the smaller mills has stopped production. Workers are angry. They've asked for you to come personally. Adaeze stood, wrapping her shawl. Then I'll go. Let them see that I don't rule from above, I walk with them. Outside the wind blew harder. Another storm was coming. Adaeze arrived at the smaller palm oil mill just before sunset. The place was quiet, too quiet. No drums. No clanging. No voices. She stepped through the gate and saw a group of angry workers sitting in the shade, arms crossed. An elder man stepped forward. His name was Papa Imanike, one of the oldest workers. You came, he said, voice low. I heard your mill stopped working, Adaeze replied. I came to listen. He raised an eyebrow. Listen? The last leader, who came, just shouted orders and left. Adaeze nodded. That's not how I lead. She sat on a bench beside him, not above him, and waited. One by one the workers began to speak. The machines were broken. Supplies were stolen. Wages had been delayed. And worst of all, their old manager had disappeared with the month's earnings. We worked, one woman cried. And now our children go hungry. Adaeze listened to every word. She didn't interrupt. She didn't promise what she couldn't fix. When they were done she stood. Your pain is real. And it is not your fault. I will not make you wait. We'll begin repairs tomorrow. And every stolen coin will be repaid, by the royal treasury if needed. Gasps filled the air. Adaeze continued, but you will not be ruled by fear anymore. I will send new machines. And I will come back in 1 week to work beside you. The workers began to clap. And for the first time in weeks, the mill echoed with hope. But as Adaeze turned to leave, a small boy ran up to her and whispered, a man was watching from behind the fence. He looked angry. She frowned. Adaeze returned to the palace late that evening. Her body was tired, but her mind kept spinning. The boy's words haunted her. A man was watching. He looked angry. She reported it to Nyameka. I think someone is still watching me. Maybe even following. Nyameka frowned. We've heard rumors. Okoro has disappeared from the village. Some say he's hiding in the bush. Others say he's gone to stir trouble at night. Adaeze nodded slowly. If he tries to harm the workers, I must protect them. That night she didn't sleep much. And just before dawn, a guard burst into the palace gate. Sabotage, he shouted. The storage shed at the central mill is on fire. Adaeze threw on her shawl and rushed to the scene. Flames licked the sky. Buckets of water flew everywhere. Workers yelled. Then she saw something, 2 men running into the bush behind the mill. She followed on foot, guards behind her. They caught one man quickly, young and frightened. But the other disappeared into the trees. The caught man confessed. Okoro sent us. He paid us to burn the supplies so the people would turn on you. Adaeze stood still. The truth hurt, but didn't surprise her. She turned to the workers. This is not just an attack on me. It's an attack on all of us, on hope, on fairness, on change. The workers looked at her with new eyes. She didn't cry. She didn't shout. She stood like a tree in the storm. And they stood with her. That evening, Chief Dyke arrived. He placed a hand on her shoulder. Your test is complete. Adaeze looked up, unsure what he meant. Chief Dyke led Adaeze to a quiet corner near the palace gardens. The night was calm, the moon full. He turned to her and said, There's one more thing you must know. Adaeze nodded slowly. Yes, my chief? The chief took a deep breath. When I walked among my workers as a poor man, I hoped to learn about them. But instead, I learned about you. Adaeze stayed silent. You reminded me of someone, he continued. A girl who once came to my palace with her mother many years ago, begging for help after her father died. Adaeze's eyes widened. My mother, she whispered. She died shortly after that visit. We had nowhere to go. The chief nodded. I didn't help you then. I was too busy, too blind. Adaeze covered her mouth. You remembered me? She asked. I never forgot. But you grew up in silence. In suffering. And yet, you never turned bitter. Tears filled her eyes. All I ever wanted was to matter, she said quietly. To be seen. To be useful. Chief Dyke stepped forward and placed a royal bead necklace over her head. You were more than useful. You were the lesson I needed. The mirror I refused to look into. He knelt before her. Adaeze gasped. No, my chief, please. But he looked up and smiled. Thank you for teaching me how to lead with heart. She fell to her knees too, and for a moment there were no ranks. Just 2 souls, one humbled by regret, the other lifted by grace. The village of Amuru buzzed with excitement. Palm fronds were tied to the gates. Drummers rehearsed. The scent of roasted yam and pepper soup filled the air. A royal festival was being prepared, not for a prince or chief, but for Adaeze, the girl who rose through kindness. In the palace courtyard, Chief Dyke called a private council meeting. She has proven more than loyalty, he said. She has wisdom, courage, and heart. I wish to name her as my successor, not to rule the throne, but to guide the people in all things of service and labor. The elders murmured, then nodded. That evening, Adaeze was called to the sacred chamber. You've already earned the people's hearts, the chief said. Now I ask, will you accept a higher calling? She looked around at the carved walls, the gold cloths, the thrones. I never dreamed of power, she said quietly. But if it means serving the people better, then yes. I accept. Cheers erupted in the courtyard. Drums beat louder than ever. At the center of the celebration, Adaeze stood on the high platform, wearing a robe of red and gold. But her eyes were still the same, gentle, steady, kind. Children danced around her. Elders clapped. Even the workers who once mocked her now bowed. She didn't raise her hand like a ruler. She opened her arms like a sister. And that made all the difference. From rags to respect, from silence to song, her journey had touched every soul. The night sky above Amuru sparkled with stars. Music echoed through the village. Children danced in circles. Joy flowed like palm wine. But Adaeze's smile faded when she heard a voice from behind the royal garden wall. You may have fooled them, but I'm still here. She turned slowly. It was Okoro, dirty, tired, eyes full of fire. I lost everything because of you, he hissed. Adaeze stepped forward calmly. You lost everything because of your choices. He pulled something from under his wrapper, a blade, sharp and rusted. Then let me make one more choice, he snapped, rushing at her. But before he reached her, Chief Dyke's guards leapt out from the shadows, grabbing him and forcing him to the ground. Chief Dyke himself appeared. I knew he would try one last time, he said. That's why I left a trail he couldn't resist. Okoro thrashed wildly. She's just a peasant girl. The chief stared down at him. No. She's the future of this village. Adaeze didn't step back. She looked at Okoro not with hate, but with pity. "I forgive you," she whispered. He stopped struggling. That night, under the moonlight, Okoro was taken away to face judgment. The people crowned Adaeze not with gold but with trust. And she used that trust to rebuild the broken mills, feed hungry families, and teach young girls that greatness isn't in loud voices, but in quiet strength. She never forgot the tree she first sat under. She planted a new one beside her house, calling it the Tree of Second Chances. And every time she sat beneath it, she remembered, one act of kindness had changed her life. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please take a moment to like the video, drop a comment, share it with someone, and most importantly, don't forget to subscribe to this channel for more powerful stories like this. Your support means everything. Thank you for watching this video.